Hello, everyone. Welcome back to. Really can't believe it. We're already on the sixth episode on the podcast already. We've already done five already, which is kind of crazy if I don't say so myself. So, welcome to the sixth episode. And today we have Horror coming back onto the channel for her second appearance. So, everyone, welcome Horror.
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me back.
Yeah, no problem. And now we're going back to the same roots. Last time, or the fifth episode, was more just kind of like a fun one where we guessed the letterbox review, and now we're actually going back talking about horror movies. And this one is going to be surrounded around the final installment in the Conjuring franchise, if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure it's going to end everything.
Yes.
Conjuring Last Rites. Yeah, I don't think after this they're doing like another Nun. No more Lorona, no more Annabelle. I think this is going to be straight up the final one. Maybe a spin-off afterwards, probably not. But yeah.
I mean, they've done quite a lot, so I think to end it on this would be a very good idea. So it's not sort of overkill.
Yeah.
Um,
Another thing is that we've only been in this franchise for around 12 years now, and we've had
mm,
four Conjuring films, two Nun films, three Annabelle films, and then the La Llorona one from like 2018 or something like that.
hmm
So it's kind of crazy that in the span of 10 years, we got this many films, but in like other franchises, we only get films maybe every 10 or so years. If it's like A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th,
mm,
Scream, kind of, Halloween. They've all had films that came out like sort of after 10 years or 5 years or something. But The Conjuring was really consistent with the franchise, always keeping up and bringing out new films at least every 2 years or so. The last Conjuring film was 2023, and that was Nun 2. And then we had in 2021, we had Conjuring Devil Made Me Do It, which I was a fan of. I didn't mind it as much as most people did. I thought it was sort of underrated, I guess you could say.
No, I get that. For me, it's definitely one of the weaker installments. But for what it is, it's enjoyable, and I think for the Ed and Lorraine Warren series, it made sense to make that, and it was, you know, as good as they could have made it in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think it was probably the worst out of the trilogy, with the second one being my favorite.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like what they tried to do with the second one. The first one was like an introduction to the characters, and it was
Mm,
still scary. But the second one went off the rails, and they had like a whole bunch of different plot lines in this one with the Crooked Man and
mm,
the Crooked Toy or whatever it was, that carousel thing. And then there was Valak for
mm.
the more of the second half of the film, and then throughout the film you would see her name on different sort of objects,
Yeah.
such as the Warren house specifically. There was like on the wall you could see a bunch of letters that would spell out the name Valak, or on the coffee table you would see
Yeah.
like the little mini blocks that would spell out Valak. And then there was the painting of Valak. So it was a great introduction to the character, and then obviously
Mm.
branched out to make the Nun films afterwards, which took place back in the past.
Yes, it was for me, I do enjoy the second one. The first one is my favorite one out of the trilogy. Um, I've always liked the Conjuring House story. I found it very interesting. The second one, I liked it. I thought it was very good. However, and this is just me because I am a believer in the paranormal, it kind of trailed off what actually happened at the Enfield House in London. So to me, there's aspects of it that I didn't like because it actually wasn't something that happened that they were portraying that happened. However, it's Hollywood, and Hollywood has a tendency of over dramatizing everything. So, you know, for everything that they did do, it was enjoyable. It was a good sort of take on what could, you know, like the dramatizations of stuff, how people tend to perceive things, and how stories can be over, you know, made out to be more than what they actually are. But it was enjoyable for me. And it's one of those movies that I think does have a lot of good scares in it as well. And I like a movie that can, you know, you don't really see too much coming in some aspects, or things completely take you by surprise. And I think the second out of the trilogy does have that quite a lot, which I enjoy.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from on that. Like, there was a lot of stuff that happened in the second one. The first film was still scary, but it was a little bit more tame than the second one. The second one had a lot going on with it. Like, there was Valak, and then there was like the Valak Easter eggs that you would have to pay attention to. And then there was the Crooked Man. There was a lot of stuff happening. And then there was the flashbacks, or more like Lorraine seeing into the future of what would happen. There was that happening. There was definitely a lot of stuff happening, and I can see why you weren't necessarily as big of a fan as the second one. Because to me, it as much as it was great, I can definitely see how you would not like it that much, because it's not necessarily realistic what happened. Like, mainly because there was a lot of stuff going on in the film.
Yes.
But I still really enjoyed it for what it was, even though parts of it weren't necessarily lore accurate to the actual stories. I still thought it was an enjoyable film, and a film I would definitely want to rewatch.
Oh,
Out
definitely.
of
It is
Yeah,
rewatchable 100%. I think just because that story is one that took Britain by such a storm, like it was a massive story, even to this day. What happened in that house is one of the biggest paranormal stories in the UK that people still talk about. So it's to see that sort of things be put in there that weren't necessarily what was told to have happened. It just threw me off a little bit, but I do, for what it is, I do enjoy that film, and it is one I will go back and watch over again, if that makes sense.
yeah. That's why I love that film. It was lots of stuff, but most of it was all enjoyable, and the performances were
Oh,
great. I
amazing.
love Lorraine's performance the most. That was great. And you can feel all the emotions in them. You can feel how sad, you can feel how scared all of the actors are in that film. And you can feel the dread, if you know what I mean. You can like
Yes.
feel what's happening, kind of.
You can. I don't know if you've actually seen any of the footage from the actual real story, but the little girl who plays Janet, spot on with the how the little girl was in real life. If you haven't watched any of the interviews with that with the real Janet, I would suggest watching them, because you appreciate that performance of Janet so much more in that movie once you've actually seen that.
Yeah, I've been familiar with the Conjuring stories. I've been familiar with what's happening. I'm familiar with the dolls. I'm familiar with the nun, Valak. I'm not necessarily like really interested in like focusing on that type of stuff, so I've never actually like got into learning about it. I know a lot about it though, not that much, but I know about it. I've researched on it a few times. Although I haven't like really gone straight into the stories and like straight into the interviews. I've seen a few interviews on the first one specifically, but yeah, mostly the first one. I haven't really gone into the second one that much. I was thinking about doing it not that long ago. Really, right now, I really want to try to get into the story on Last Rites specifically to
It's
see
an
what
interesting
actually
one.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot happening in this film, and it's a lot to take in. It's the last one. It's the reasons why the Warrens quit. I do want to kind of research on Last Rites, see what actually happened, watch the movie, see if it's actually lore accurate to what happened. I I'm excited for the film. That's really all I can say.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for it. I mean, I don't want to obviously talk too much about the real life stuff that happened too much because it is about the movies, but I don't. Ed and Lorraine Warren, I'm not the biggest fan of them personally. I think that they were con people, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I believe that they sort of, in my personal opinion, took advantage of vulnerable people who genuinely were experiencing paranormal activity. I'm not saying that they weren't, trying to help them. They could have been, but the way a lot of stuff was exploited, I don't like. However, the characters in the movies, I absolutely love, and these are the versions that
Oh,
I'm really excited. They work so well as a duo, and everything they do together is just they're gripping. And I think that they are really what sell the movies completely because of their performances and how well they just blend together.
yeah, they portrayed the Warrens better than the actual people, in my opinion.
Mm.
I've heard a lot of stories about the actual Warrens. I know they aren't necessarily the nicest people ever. Like, in the movies, the Warrens are generally considered
Mm.
to be really, really nice people, but the actual Warrens aren't actually that nice, from what I've heard.
No, and I think with the last rites, if I'm correct, there was the story that this is based on. There was actually an interview with the family on a talk show, and the way that Ed was on that talk show, I really didn't like. Um, but the portrayal of them in the movies is so warming, and you're like, you really grow to love these characters, and that is what I'm really excited to see in the new movie, because like you said, it is the one that is sort of ending it all for at least their side of the story. And I'm excited to see how they end that and what sort of impact those characters go through.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's literally it. All these characters are so heartwarming in the film. They're
Mm.
all very nice people, and they genuinely care about the people around them. Except some people, obviously. No pun intended. But they they're just really nice people overall. You've come to grow and love these characters over the past 12 years of this franchise.
Mm.
And every single film, they keep getting nicer and nicer and nicer. And you grow to love them even more because of the actions they do in the films. And
Mm.
they are willing to protect these victims of the spirits. They're putting their life on the line to protect people that they don't even know that well, and they're putting their life on the line to protect themselves as well, but mostly protect these people that they don't even know that well. And it really
Yeah.
shows how kind and sweet the Warrens could have been.
Mm.
Yes, they were nice during the cases, but afterwards they did grow a little bit meaner. I think after the actual case of Last Rites, I think they kind of went downhill mentally because of how bad this case actually was, which is why Last Rites is going to be the last film because of how bad, disoriented, because of how dreadful it was and how impactful it was on the Warrens' lives.
Yeah, and I mean, in this movie as well, they're going to be in a completely different stage of life than what we've seen them in the previous installments. So they're going to be a lot older. Their daughter is going to be grown up, I believe. And they're going to have more to worry about at this stage in their life. So to see this case, because it was quite an impactful sort of haunting, or if you want to call it, or you know that was going on, that from my understanding it was something that took a massive strain on all involved, to the point that the family actually had to move out of their family home. I know that you see that in a lot of the these movies, these families don't last very long where they're living, but the impact that it had with all of the, sort of apparent demonic manifestations, it must have been quite a strain on everybody involved. I would imagine, and the differences to where we first meet the Warrens in these movies to where the Warrens are now is going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, their character development, how they grow
Mm.
over time to be the Warrens. And another thing, they're very respectful with how they do everything in the films. As
Mm.
I said before, they're really nice people and they care about the people around them. But they're also really respectful to the spirits and the demons themselves. Yeah, they hate them and they try to get rid of them, but they're at least still respectful in a way. And if you compare it to like other actual like ghost hunters or
Mm.
real exorcist pros, they're not as respectful as the Warrens are in the movies, at least. In
No.
the actual cases, I'm not quite sure on how respectful they actually were, but in the movies they're really respectful overall. If it's demons or actual people around them that are being affected or possessed by these demons, the Warrens are always respectful. And comparing them to other
Mm.
like ghost hunters like Zach Bagan or Sam and Colby,
Mm.
they are respectful, but they just do it for videos, and it's bringing out the whole reason why they're respectful, because now these demons and spirits are they're being recorded, and they don't really necessarily like that. Maybe some of them do, who knows, they wanted to be famous, but they don't
Yeah.
really show that much respect as the Warrens did. And keep in
No.
mind, they never really recorded anything.
No, and I mean, back when the Warrens were in action and active in the paranormal community, the recordings of what was happening were very different to what we can do now. There weren't platforms such as YouTube, or even paranormal television shows weren't a thing back then. So I guess we'll never really know exactly what happened in those investigations. Um, and how they actually handled it. But two, there would have been such a difference with now. I find all you need to do is go onto YouTube and look at any paranormal YouTube channel, and the way they antagonize the apparent spirits that are there, to me, it doesn't have that realness to it. It's I think a lot of them are quite staged. I find it very hard nowadays to get into a paranormal YouTube channel because a lot of people are just doing it for that automatic YouTube fame. So they will stage anything that they possibly can. There is a level of respect you have to have. I'm a massive believer in the paranormal. I have experienced paranormal things myself.
Same
Um,
here.
so I will never ever say that, these people didn't experience things, or even these YouTube channels, the places that they go, I'll never say they're not haunted, because hauntings can be subjective. But there is a level of respect that you have to have. And I do think that from the documentation we have had from the Warrens, there is more respect there than what you see mostly, which is where I believe you are going to get more of a positive outcome. Because if you antagonize something too much, you're just giving it that energy to either ignore or bring their bad, what am I trying to say, their bad intentions out even more. There
Yeah.
are ways to go about it, and what we see in the movies, it's very clever, and the way that they combat things, it's more believable, I think.
Yeah, like if you're comparing these audio recordings to other YouTube channels like Sam and Colby, one thing to keep in mind is that Sam and Colby haven't really been doing this that long.
Mm.
Like the Warrens did it for decades. They've only been doing it for around a decade, I think. And they already came out with their own movie that came out in theaters in October. And they didn't even it doesn't necessarily look too real. Like the Warrens, they had a film about them because of how bad these stories were.
Mm.
The Sam and Colby, they're really only making a movie about them because of their fame.
Mm.
That's really the only reason why their film came out last year, because of their fame. But the Warrens, they did it all because of what happened in those audio recordings, how bad they actually were.
Yeah, and
And
also that sorry to interrupt, but a lot of
all
these
good.
places that the YouTubers go to, they're apparent haunted hotels. Everything's exhausted. They go to the same places. The Warrens were called into cases that people were actually blown away by, that other people couldn't quite grasp. And that is where their importance in the paranormal community, if whether you support them or whether you don't, they are an important part of the paranormal community. And that's where they come in, is because they were genuinely needed. Whereas just normal paranormal investigators aren't needed.
Yeah. They
So
just do it for fun. They
yeah,
do it for scares. But the Warrens, they do it to help people. They
yeah.
do it because it's that bad. That's how insane these cases were.
Hmm.
But I was gonna say something.
Sorry, that was my fault.
All good. You can if you want to say something, you can go. I'm gonna think of what I was going to say. It was something related to if you're comparing like these the paranormal videos, they're not scary at all, really. Sometimes they're scary, but as you said, they go to the same place. They do it to make content. But if you compare it to like audio recordings, they feel so real. Another one is Zach Bagans Museum in Las Vegas. I really want to go there. It's all creepy. There's like real artifacts from the creator of the Church of Satan. There's a real file of the original case that The Exorcist 1973 is based on.
Mm.
If you didn't know, The Exorcist 1973 was shown that a girl was being possessed, but in the actual case, it was
Mm.
just a small boy that was being possessed.
Yeah.
And at that museum, they have artifacts from there, and they also have audio recordings from the real exorcism of Emily Rose as well. There was also a bunch of other artifacts from a lot of bad things, like serial killers from the 90s or the 80s. There was Peggy the doll, a real DeBook box.
Mm.
There was a lot of stuff in that museum. I think it was like 50 per person to go in. I know that if you actually did go there, a lot of bad stuff could happen to you. Real possessions, people have thrown up there. Apparently, someone was brought out on a stretcher. To be fair, it's one of the most haunted places on Earth because of what actually is inside of the museum.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all the way in Las Vegas, so I do want to go there. I think you have to be like 14 plus to go there. 15, so won't matter for me.
It's
But yeah,
interesting. I do love stuff like that. As I said, I'm a massive believer in the paranormal. I've I'm going to sound really probably crazy to some people, but I've been haunted myself when I was
yeah,
very young.
I get
um,
that because my mom was. For the longest time, she lived in a house and there was, I don't know if the ghost was negative or positive, but
mm,
she would always get scratches on her neck. And the ghost was more just kind of playing with her, not really doing
mm,
anything bad. But it
interesting.
was from the 80s or the 90s. But
Mm,
I do believe in ghosts. I'm a heavy believer in that. I genuinely see the fear in a lot of people when it comes to that type of stuff. I completely understand everything going on in the paranormal world. It's all
mm.
terrifying. It's all real stuff, and it all just depends around God and Satan and just
I
their
agree.
connection. Their
It's a
connection is terrible.
bizarre, yeah, it's a bizarre thing to think about, because every day there is somebody going through some kind of haunting that could use a helping hand.
Yeah,
Mine was from when I was a baby up until I moved out of the house that we lived in when I was 16. So I experienced an apparition basically every day of my childhood, up
that
until I was about
yeah, that's a
12.
long time. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm the only person who saw that specific thing, but we had a lot happen in that house, from poltergeist activity, apparitions, literally everything that you could think about happened in that house. And it was a very scary situation to be in for quite a long time. But
Yeah, especially at that age. I couldn't imagine what you would be thinking at that age, especially. Like, you're still young, you're not really necessarily familiar with what's
mm,
happening. And just seeing, hearing what's happening, all these
mm,
noises, possibly voices or whatever. Did you ever hear voices there, like
I
floor
did.
creaks? Yeah.
So I used to see a woman who I used to interact with right up until I was about 12, until I it's a long story. I won't go too into it, but
Okay.
I basically said I don't want to see her anymore because it started to really scare me. I heard male voices in my bedroom. My sister saw a little girl in our bedroom. I had the shower curtain punched by a shadow that went past, and I was the only one, obviously, in the bathroom. We had
Yeah.
a big grandmother clock that was on the wall, which just
Oh,
got pulled
God.
away from it got pulled away from the wall when a certain word was said on the television. But the certain word that was said on the television was connected to something that had happened in the house. So it was very weird. So
Yeah, that's a weird experience.
yeah, so from my perspective, like, these kind of movies are right down my street because I can connect with them.
Yeah.
I have some sort of, similarities to things that I have experienced in the real world with that. And people can call me crazy because there are a lot of people out there who don't believe in the paranormal, who think it's all BS. But for me, it's one of those things that I might not believe in if I didn't experience everything that I have experienced. But it's why I connect with these movies a lot, and why I think that, these documentations of these hauntings that have happened are very important, and to see them in movie form for me is refreshing. It's nice because
Yeah.
it's based on something. Whether or not that something was paranormal, it is based on something that actually happened.
Yeah, thing about, like, for me, I haven't actually, like, necessarily experienced actual paranormal activity before, but I'm related to a lot of people that have
Mm,
experienced that type of thing. Like, a lot of people I know have been attacked by, like, paranormal activities. Some were scratched, obviously. Voices were heard sometimes.
mm.
Fort Langley over here near where I live has like a haunted house or something like that. Like an actual haunting house. And you don't find a lot of those around here. Basically, what I'm trying to say is these movies are great not just because of how scary they are, but because of how real they feel,
Mm.
especially once you actually get to know what happened in those actual cases. You get to see, and you see all the lore that's happening in the movie. You get to, like, understand everything that's happening. But
Yes.
yeah, also, and hello, how are you doing,
Hello.
Flet? Welcome. And Rice, what is up? How are you doing? But yeah, just have to say hi. I don't usually read comments on these, but when I do, you're in luck. But yeah, it was. I love these movies, man. And now they're ending, and honestly, it's a
Mm.
great way to end things because now they're going off on a high note with the possibly the most dangerous paranormal case in history.
Mm. And
Maybe in the top three. There's probably worse ones.
yeah, but it's the impact it had. It had so much, like, demonic, poltergeist, just general, typical what you'd call haunted house activity. And for it to stop these people from actually wanting to do anymore says a big thing. Whether or not you believe they're con men or what they were doing was legitimate, for something to stop them, there must have been something that was very important and very impactful in that specific case to make them not want to do anything further.
Yeah, like, and I know a few people that have seen these movies, and because of these films, they actually started believing in paranormal activity and the paranormal
Mm.
world. They started believing in ghosts. They started
Mm.
believing in hearing voices, things moving across the desk without anything having to happen. Um, I think I've only had like one paranormal experience, and I remember I was in my old room. I think I was like maybe 8 or 7 at the time. I'm not quite sure. I was in my room, and then I woke up. It was like 3 a.m., and there was a specific light in my room that wasn't turned on before, and when I woke up, it was completely off. But then it just randomly turned on, and it was one of those that like when you pull it down it turns on, and then
Oh,
that freaked me out like hell. But I'm not
yeah.
sure if it was maybe a malfunction with the light bulb. Sometimes that can happen, but it was more of like an older style lamp, so you never really know.
No, and the thing is, you can't, like, I'm one of those people, when it comes to the paranormal, I will try to debunk it first to say, actually, that wasn't paranormal. It was this, that, or the other. If it's something that I genuinely can't explain, I leave it open and I'm like, could have been, might not have been, until I have further proof that I think something was definitely paranormal, or I witness something that somebody else is witnessing with me, or I see something with my own eyes that I can't deny. Then I'll always leave it open to be a possible non-paranormal activity, something scientific, or just something, coincidental that just happened at a certain time. But saying that, you can't always close stuff off to be faulty electrics, or that somebody outside or something like that, because there could genuinely be a reason that is linked to the paranormal why that something happened.
Yeah, the weird thing about it is that it really only happened once.
Mm.
And another thing, I was, because I have my tablet next to me. I always have my tablet next to me on my like nightstand. The weird thing about it was when it did turn on, it was exactly 3 a.m. for some
Mm.
reason. Like it was 2:59, and then when it hit 3 a.m., the thing just went on like that, and I got super freaked out. And then I
Witching
just
hour.
started like crying and stuff because it was only like 6, 7 years old.
Mm.
But
And
it was
that's
still,
a that's an impactful hour in the paranormal. It's the witching hour,
yeah.
3 a.m. So
Yeah,
it's
that was another thing that freaked me out because I was a lot into like playing Roblox games. So I was into like
mm,
playing the scary games at that time. And that was one thing that made me freak out because I knew a lot about 3 a.m. And I
mm.
remember I used to watch these stupid videos, and I still do. And I remember back when I watched them, I thought they were real. This is completely not related to anything we're talking about. But I used to watch these people called Jester and I'm J Station. They all like lived in
Uh-huh.
Canada. And they made these stupid videos of like calling Michael Myers at 3 a.m. or calling McDonald's at 3 a.m. or going to McDonald's and buying a Big Mac for $6.66. They were completely stupid videos, but I remember when I was young, I used to think these were real because I was still young. But now that I think about it, they're still scary because they're so stupid.
Yeah.
They did a great job at making them seem real, but they
Mm.
were so stupid, and that's why I love watching them. They're like my childhood now that I think about it. I
We've all
grew
got
up
those
on watching,
videos.
yeah, I grew up on watching those stupid videos, but now they're great. I do
Mm.
know that I'm J Station though is
Oh, I know.
unbelievable. He is
Yeah.
unbelievable. He faked his girlfriend's
Yeah.
death.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and then he got arrested multiple times. He broke into a mall and spent like overnight in the mall. He had charges pressed against him. He's not a great man. I don't support him at all, but I still love his content.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes you can separate the person from the content that you're watching. It's same with actors and actresses or directors. You might not like them as a person, but you can enjoy the content that they create for you.
Yeah, like one for me is Ezra Miller. I hate that guy so
Mm.
much, but I love his role in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. His Flash was pretty bad actually, but I love his role in Perks of Being a Wallflower. Great film, one of the best films of all time in my opinion. I think Emma Watson was in it as well. But yeah, I hate him, but I love that role.
Mm.
And that's the thing with a lot of actors. Most of them are like bad people, but the roles are great.
Mm.
Same for The Conjuring. The characters are great, but the actual people themselves aren't that great. Specifically, the Warrens.
Yeah, I mean, with the Devil Made Me Do It, I know that half the family has come out to say, "Yep, it was all real," and the other half of the family has come out to say, "No, my little brother had a mental illness. The Warrens exploited us, etc., etc." So it's very split down the middle, and it's all down to personal preference. There are still people out there who think the Warrens were amazing and really brought something to the paranormal community. I mean, we've just seen Elton and somebody else from overnight buy the Warrens' house,
Yeah,
which is literally shaken up a lot of things because some people think that's not right because of all of the apparent possessed items in there, such as Annabelle and all of the other items from the investigations that people are now going to be able to have more access to, which wasn't supposed to happen. We obviously also sadly saw somebody die a couple of weeks ago who was very big in the paranormal community, who was on a tour with the Annabelle doll and
yep.
sadly passed away in his hotel room. And people are linking that to the doll, which, yes, it could be. It could just be a very big coincidence, but it does make you think. They were told never take Annabelle out of her box, never remove
But
her from this room. And they have. And this has now happened that you can't help but think, is that linked somehow? So it's very 50-50 with, you know, how much of it is actually real, how much of it isn't, but also should these people now be in charge of a house with all of these possessions from the Warrens cases that could possibly cause people harm?
yeah, like thing about it, like that was like big in May and April, the Annabelle thing with her
Mm,
supposedly going missing. I
mm,
didn't really read much into that. I just knew about that a lot, and I'm really really sad for who passed away. That's crazy what happened, and the fact it happened like that.
mm,
Thing is, I don't think they've released any information on how he died yet. From what I know, I don't think they've released any information on how he died. And bringing this up, Zach Bagans Museum again, Post Malone went
mm,
over there, and one of his, I think his bodyguard or something, or someone he knew, touched the book box,
mm,
and he just stood there and put his hand off, and then Post Malone touched his shoulder. So basically the evil that was inside of him transferred over into Post,
mm.
and days later I'm pretty sure his plane had like malfunctions or something like that.
Oh.
Nothing too serious happened to him, but all that I know is that there was some pretty bad malfunctions, and a lot of people were saying it was because of the box and the history behind the box as well.
Mm,
That specific box was disgusting. I've seen it. I've not seen it, but I've seen like footage of people talking about it, and it's disgusting of
mm.
what the real backstory of that book box is. I would recommend searching into that museum. A lot of people think it's just not real, but it's it can be real. I know a lot of people don't really think paranormal is real, But once you actually get to experience it yourself, you're going to be questioning reality. You're going to be questioning maybe everything was real all along. And then you're going to be going around onto YouTube or Wikipedia and are going to be researching on paranormal.
Yeah.
You could watch like the original Exorcist, Poltergeist, Conjuring,
Mm,
Exorcism of Emily Rose. You can
great
watch
movie.
any of that and you will get all the information you need because all of those movies are based on true stories,
Yes,
especially The Conjuring, The Exorcist.
that's the thing, and there's a thing that I personally believe that if you give something energy, then it is going to sort of absorb that energy and potentially use that. So I do think that some poltergeist activity isn't necessarily down to spirits themselves. It can be negative energy, whether that has come from people or something else. Your energy can do a lot, um, which is why I think, there is something after you die, because basically we are energy. Energy doesn't die, so there's only something else that can happen with that, which is that it goes elsewhere. I think, as I said, a lot of poltergeist activity is caused by human beings and their energy, but negative energy. And if you put that negative energy into things such as objects, the energy it's going to release is only going to be even more negative. So the more energy people put into a certain object, like that Dybbuk's box or Annabelle, for instance, the more energy it's going to absorb and the more negative energy it's going to release when it can. So this is why I think you have to be extremely careful with situations like that, because it may not necessarily be a demon or a bad spirit connected to something, but just negative energy in general can prove to be very dangerous in my eyes. And I think a lot of the hauntings that the Warrens did, there was that aspect to it. Specifically the Enfield haunting, I feel like there was a lot of negative energy from the children in that family because of their experiences they had with their family breaking up, with the
Yep.
ages that they were at. It did cause a lot of stuff, but it also attracted a lot of things. And this is where people have to be very careful with what they're doing. And I think the movies show a great example of that.
Yep.
It's not always going to be the demon at the bottom of the bed. It can be energies from elsewhere, but it can all have the same sort of impact.
Yeah, and that's going based off of what you said, that goes for like the first Conjuring film.
Mm,
In the film, you know that the family weren't connected to the church at all. They never really went to
mm,
church. They didn't have their new house with it wasn't cleansed of God. It wasn't like God's work. And it was all really because they kept touching a lot of stuff, and that box thing as well, they played with that a lot in the
mm.
film. So when Lorraine actually went into the house, she could see the spirit standing behind her when she was using the hypnotized thing, whatever it was. And that goes with what you were talking about with objects. And that really shows what happens when you touch stuff like that, because they weren't familiar with the church. They weren't a part of the church. So because they weren't necessarily a part of the church, it made the objects a lot more deadlier
Mm.
because of that reason.
Yeah, they didn't have that protection around them.
Yeah.
Again, religion's one of those things, a bit like the paranormal. Not everybody believes in it. I personally do, to some aspect. I'm not going to say that I 100% believe there is the big man upstairs and the big man downstairs, but there's definitely something that I believe in. I pray every night. I am, I was brought up as a Catholic, so I went to Catholic school, etc.
Yep. Same
So
here.
I have been I had my christening, so I was baptized basically. I've had my communions and my confirmation. And for me, I do think that if you have some sort of protection like that, it is the strongest thing that you can have. And like you were saying, with them not being related to any church, that obviously did have an impact. They didn't have that sort of protection to then go forward and, be somewhat sort of not safe, but have some sort of shield against them to the negative energy.
Yeah,
It's
because
an interesting
obviously,
one.
wait, sorry.
No, I finished. You go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, going based off of what you said, that's basically the whole point. These people, they didn't have a protection. So everything they did made it worse.
Mm,
If they were protected, it would still be bad, but it would be a little bit more tamed,
mm,
if you know what I mean. But
mm-hmm,
in the actual Conjuring, it wasn't tamed at all, and it became really, really
mm,
offensive physically towards them. Like the spirits there, they really played with them in the Conjuring, and that's because they didn't have a shield. So
mm,
they had the ability to fool with them as much as they want because God wasn't on their side until the Warrens came in and helped.
mm,
And then that's when everything broke loose. She obviously became possessed. She had to kill the youngest child. She was getting taken over by the demon because she wasn't necessarily fully protected. And
mm.
then, yeah, that's really what happened afterwards. Nothing
Yeah,
to be said there. If you've seen The Conjuring, I'm not going to say spoilers, but for anyone in the chat that has seen The Conjuring, you probably know what I mean of what happens after.
yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you actually know this, but also when they were filming the original Conjuring movie, a lot of scary things actually happened on the set to the actors, um, which is very interesting. If you have a read into some of the things that actually happened, it is almost like they called up on the negative spirits or energies,
Hmm.
and things were apparent that were happening. I would advise going to have a look at some of the stuff that happened on the
I
set of The Conjuring.
I never knew that happened, honestly.
I don't mean to plug one of my videos, but I actually did do a video about things that happened on movie sets. The Exorcist was also another one because
Yep.
they were playing with this negativity and attracting this sort of
I did watch on Prime Video. They
mm,
did this series where they went and they talked about cursed films. The
mm,
Crow was one of them, obviously, with Bruce Lee, no, Brandon Lee getting killed
hmm
on set because of a bullet. And then The Exorcist was one of them because of what happened on the set. I don't think The Conjuring was one of them. Like they actually talked about like genuinely cursed films,
hmm
and The Exorcist was one of them.
yeah,
Uh,
the fire, the set setting on fire, etc. It's interesting. It is interesting. I mean, Vera Farmiga, she had um, like a claw mark appear on her laptop, and the same mark then appeared on her body. One of the younger actresses, she started to get bruises everywhere, which is obviously something that happens in the movie to the mother.
yep.
And it turns out she had this blood illness, which I believe then somehow just magically disappeared after the movie.
Hmm.
So it's a very
That's a
weird,
coincidence. Yeah.
very weird. Um, so it does make you think, how much playing with these stories and these energies, how much negativity it can bring to you, and how careful you have to be when you're playing around with, Ouija boards and seances and just the paranormal in general.
Yeah, like that's another thing about Ouija boards going with they made a movie about it. I haven't seen the second one. I've seen the first Ouija movie. It was terrible from
Mm.
what I remember. YouTubers obviously play around with the Ouija board a lot. Sometimes they get in contact with some really, really bad ones. movies.
Mm.
I'm not gonna say the name, but one of them did start with a Z,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like one of the worst ones you want to go with. If you get that one, you seriously have to get out of the game like that. Um,
Yeah.
Going to Oracle's comment, let's read this one. We got The Holy Power. I've only seen the first one, but I've been thinking about seeing this last one here. Honestly, personally, I would say since you've only seen the first one, I don't think it's going to be necessarily important to watch the second and third one
No.
because, yeah, they're all connected with the Warrens, but there isn't necessarily going to be an impact on the story of the last one coming out. There's not going to be that much of an impact, so honestly, I'd say you can go into it with not knowing anything because it's their last case. It's going to be really the only case that really matters out of the four cases that we're going to be seeing. So, yeah, I'd say so. You could just
Yeah.
watch the last one right away.
100%. These are movies you don't have to watch in any specific order. You can miss movies if you don't want to watch them. They're very standalone in it. Yes, they connect, but they're standalone. You don't, like you said,
Yeah.
no impact on
Unless
the
if
story.
unless if you're talking about Conjuring 2, then I would recommend actually watching the first two nuns before you watch Conjuring 2
Mm.
just to get a little bit of an understanding what's going on. Because yes, Conjuring 2 was the introduction of the character, but the prequels were the story of the character and what really happened. And then obviously two siblings in one franchise. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot her name, but Lorraine's sister, younger sister, by
Yeah.
like 20 years, I think, was the main protagonist in the first one and second one. Or I think like second protagonist in the second one.
They look so much like each other as well. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Um,
but the age gap is crazy there.
yeah, they've got the same dad. I don't think they have the same mom, but it is mad. But they're so similar in appearance that she could have easily played a younger version of her sister, like 100%,
Yeah,
100%. I think
I'd
her
say
name's,
so.
is it Taysa Farmiga, something like that.
I think so.
I might
I'm
be
not
pronouncing it
entirely sure,
completely wrong.
but I think that is it.
I'm
From what I
probably
know,
butchering the
it wasn't.
pronunciation.
Yeah, from what I know, they're just siblings. They both did some pretty good horror movies.
Mm.
I really like the younger sister's role in a movie called Final Girls, which came out 10 years ago actually, now that I think about
Ah.
it. These kids, that she had a mom and she died, and they went to a movie to watch a movie that her mother was in like 20 years ago, and then something bad goes wrong and these teenagers get sucked into the film, and now they have to find a way to make it out of the film alive.
Oh,
It's a funny movie. It's more of like horror comedy, but it's pretty funny. It kind of gives me uh kind of gives me Nightmare on Elm Street vibes a little bit,
oh,
with
nice.
specifically the power glove, like how he plays with his victims
Mm.
with the power glove. It kind of reminds me of that scene specifically, how they get sucked into the game, how they get sucked into the movie.
Oh,
But
interesting.
I thought it was a good film. I don't think a lot of people were that big of a fan of it. I thought it was a good film. I'm a fan of it. I like it. But
I'm gonna have to watch that now.
yeah, I'd say I recommend it. I don't know if you would necessarily like it, but it's horror comedy. It's kind of like Shaun
Mm.
of the Dead, kind of like it's a zombie film, but it's funny. This is a slasher film, but it's funny.
Interesting.
A lot of comedy. I think this is one of the more tamer films, the most tame horror movies. Like it's very moderate on every single one of the IMDb scores. If you look at like the IMDb charts, there will be like the first one, I'm not going to say it because obviously that's a little bit inappropriate for this channel, but it will either be none, mild, severe, or moderate. I did not say those in order, but I'd say Final Girls is more of like half mild, half moderate. There's not much gore, not much language from what I remember. It's been a while, although it was a good film.
Hmm. I'm
And
gonna have to
then
check that out.
after that, they all got connected into one franchise. So now Vera and her sister are all in the same franchise. I heard that I think she might be in Last Rites, if I'm correct, possibly.
Ah,
I'm not quite sure, but from what I know, I think the little sister might play a role in Last Rites.
interesting.
Actually, yeah, I think a new actor would maybe play an older version of her because The Nun and The Nun 2 took like 20 years before the Conjuring movies. So she'd
Mm.
probably be in her like 60s maybe by this time because this one happened in 86, if I'm correct. Last Rites
Yes.
happened in
Yeah.
86, yeah. So it's like she's going to be old now.
Mm.
But yeah.
Interesting. That's I like that they're like looking at it like that. I'd like them to bring that character in and, you know, have a bit
Yeah,
of
kind of
her
like
story continue.
yeah, kind of continue everything, connect it a little bit more. Because the thing
Mm.
about the Conjuring franchise is that if you're looking to other franchises like Scream or actually no, not Friday the 13th, nothing in that franchise is connected at all. Um, maybe you're connecting it to like other movies that aren't horror movies. They're really good at connecting storylines together, especially
Mm.
Marvel. So maybe they might do a route like that and try connecting everything. Annabelle, Larona. They might try to
Mm.
connect everything all to Last Rites since it is the final installment. And do you think we should start actually talking about Last Rites? I like how this
Yes.
one was more just talking about just paranormal in general.
But
But
yes.
yeah,
Um, yeah, 100%. So like you said, the story about it is going to be very interesting. I have seen the trailer, but I don't want to watch too much into it because I don't want to ruin anything for myself.
yeah.
I
I've
don't think it's a
seen
movie I'll
both
see in the
trailers
cinema though.
though. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's that I think I've seen both of them once, but I like to analyze trailers sometimes, maybe a little bit too much. And I don't want to do that with this one because I actually want to have a few surprises, jump scares. I don't scare very easily, so I don't want any of that to be ruined. Um, so I have only watched both trailers once, but I have seen, there's quite a bit of CGI, and that's the only thing I think might throw me off a little bit.
Yeah, thing about The Conjuring is that it's supposed to be practical.
Mm,
It's all based on real things, so might as well actually use props, make everything look practical. I do know in this film, this is the first time that we're actually going to see a physical form of a demon. In
yes.
the trailer, you can see him holding a lantern and walking
Yes.
around. So that's great for me that we finally get to see an actual demon walking in someone's body or walking in his body. I'm
Mm,
not entirely sure what's going to happen there, but either way, it's amazing what's happening there. I'm really excited for this film. I think it has potential to be the best of the franchise if it goes off the rails and really shows how scary this case actually was. Like if you're comparing The Conjuring to the other movies, there's a few good jump scares in every single
mm,
film. This movie needs to be jump scare filled. It needs to be the pinnacle of films with the jump scares. It needs to be the film with the most jump scares in horror history. I feel like that would be a great thing to do because it really shows how scary, how demonic, how
mm.
intense the actual case of Last Rites actually was.
Yes, and I think just to go along with that is yes, I think it needs the jump scares, the scariness, the reason why you go to watch these movies is to get scared, right? So they need that, but also I don't want them to see them cram too much into a story, because you need to have that nice flow for it to be impactful. You need it to focus on the right things from this story rather than too much of the side stuff, too much of the things that aren't related necessarily to the story. And I think it needs to have that just straight down the middle, straight ahead of you, no side paths, just get, to every single point, flow, make it flow nicely, but at the same time bring in those scary aspects, bring in those jump scares, bring in the bits that are going to shock you. And that's what I would like to see most from it, is the shock factor, but not in a just doing it for the sake of it way, but because of how realistic and how, these things that these people actually witnessed, just how bad they were.
Yeah, that's another thing about these films. Like, most of the Conjuring films were pretty good at cramming stuff together and not making too much plot lines, too many side stories. But, like, The Nun 2 had a lot of side stories with it.
Mm,
And comparing this to other franchises, Stranger Things should
mm,
be the, like, king or queen of side plots. There's like season 4, there's the Russian side plot, there's
mm,
the Hawkins side plot, then there's the California side plot. There's so many side plots, and then season 3, there's Russians, there's
mm.
the side plot between Will being all kind of like mad because of girls, and then there's like there's a lot of side plots. There's like the magnet side plot, which is ridiculous. And
Mm.
then Halloween Ends, there's like 3 different side plots. There's like Corey
Oh.
and Allison, and then there's like Corey being an actual like killer, and then there's Laurie trying to move on and having these flashbacks of Michael hearing things and stuff. There's a lot of side plots, and the thing about The Conjuring is that they're good with keeping the movie involved around one single
Mm.
story, which The Nun 2 couldn't really do, and I wasn't a big fan of The Nun 2 when
No,
I
me
saw it
neither.
in theaters. Yeah. But I think Devil Made Me Do It was good with side plots, if I'm correct. I'm not entirely sure, but I really hope that they don't go off the rails like most of these franchises do, and I hope they keep Last Rites as still a scary movie, but also a tame movie.
Mm.
Like with staying connected and staying on plot, staying on the correct path.
Yes, and giving it that the story that it deserves. This story hasn't been told in movie form before. We've had similar stories, but not this one, and it needs to have that. Needs to stay true to it, and needs to give it the story it is needed to have that impact. I know obviously they are sidetracking. You can see it from the trailers that they're going to be sidetracking with their daughter, etc. And then it sort of, if I remember correctly, leading into their family dynamic as well. But I'm really hoping that's just very minimal and very, just a little bit of a side story for them that isn't going to take the focus away from the main meal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm I do hope that they do a side plot just for the daughter, like not too much, but
Mm,
just kind of like seeing how much she's evolved over time, her character development throughout the films. Because the last time we saw her was, I think she was in Devil Made Me Do It for like maybe a few minutes. That was it.
mm,
But she played a better role in the Conjuring 2, if I'm correct. Like, she played a lot with the Valak storyline there. That's
mm,
another thing. Plot lines with the story there. There was like Valak at home, and then there was the actual like haunting there.
mm.
There was a lot going on in The Conjuring 2. Side plots, characters. There I don't know, there's like not much to talk about for side plot lines for Conjuring 2 other than just the plot itself being all over the place.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, but I think we've mainly seen the daughter. I think it was Annabelle Comes Home was a big. Was
Yeah,
that the
she
one
was
that
the
she
main
was in?
character,
Yeah,
wasn't she? Yeah.
yeah, big role for their daughter in that one. And we've got to remember as well, their daughter is still alive, so I want it to be respectful to her because she isn't fiction. She is still alive. She's, watched everything go on with her parents, good and bad. So it does need to be respectful to her, which I'm sure they will do.
Yeah. And keep in mind, she grew up around that type of stuff.
Mm,
So she's like, she probably does have PTSD from what happened. I would if that happened to me. That's just like nuts having to experience all of that in one single household. In 20 years of living, you have to experience all of those cases. You have to
mm,
experience your parents risking their lives for
mm.
other people that they don't even know. And
Miss out
then
on
now
certain
you're,
events for you as well.
yeah, now your parents are dead and you're the only one alive. And now they're making a movie based off of the worst case that your
Mm.
parents ever stumbled upon.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to be hypocritical here with what I say because I still am not the biggest fan of the Warrens, but she's also the only one now who can defend them when people do not believe what they did or do call them, as I have, con artists. So, she's got all of that on her shoulders now that it must be quite a um, big thing for her to have all of that going on because she didn't ask for it. She wasn't dead center of it all. So
Yeah.
I would like the movie to be as respectful as they can to her in that respect, which, as I said, I'm sure they will be. I'm sure they will treat her stories, fictional or real, with as much respect as possible.
Yeah, because these movies are about not just her but her parents, so
Mm,
they're trying to show respect to them, and they really do show respect.
mm,
The actual characters show more respect than the Warrens actually ever did, I
mm.
think. Like in the movies, they are really respectful, a little bit too respectful.
Yeah.
But I think what they're doing, I think they will do that. I hope they do bring justice to the actual Warrens, as much as they aren't great people, and that's why I'm not a big fan of them. Their actual cases are very intriguing to listen to, very, I can't find the right word, but it's like very like interesting
Mm. We've not
to
had anything
like,
else like it.
yeah, there, that's literally what I'm trying to say. Like, there's nothing else like it. It's the first of its kind. Like, The Exorcist, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, there was only one single movie about it. There
Mm,
weren't like multiple cases about it. The Warrens are people that experienced multiple cases going over the double digits,
mm.
and
And
they did a lot.
they are one of a kind. Like, whether you like them or not, they are one of a kind. Their cases are one of a kind. Their evidence is one of a kind because they are the only people who are really in the spotlight doing that kind of thing in that era. So we'll
Yeah,
never get anything else like them. Like we won't have other people like them and we won't have other apparent evidence like theirs because it's very specific to them, very unique and individual to them. So it does have to be respected, um, regardless of your outlook on it. It's one of those things that has to be analysed in a very careful way.
yeah,
So, you know, I think the level of respect they need to have for this specific particular case is is huge. It's I'm just really wanting them to do justice with it and not. I don't want too much Hollywood.
yeah, because this movie is the reason why they stopped doing what they
Mm,
did. And keep in mind, this franchise, there's over 10 movies in this franchise,
mm,
and it's all because of these cases of the Warrens. It's like, most movies, there's like sequels to The Exorcist, but there
Mm.
isn't double sequels. There isn't like no, there isn't double digits in that franchise. There's multiple Poltergeist sequels. There's one Emily Rose movie, if I'm correct.
Mhm.
All of those movies, they're just paranormal movies.
Mm.
They're based on real cases, but The
The sequels aren't though.
Conjuring, yeah, The Conjuring, on the other hand, that it's bizarre.
Mm.
They made a whole film franchise in 12 years based on 10 of their cases. Like,
Mm.
the amount of films they managed to do in 12 years is bizarre. We had Conjuring, Conjuring 2, Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, Annabelle Comes Home, Nun, Nun 2, La Llorona, Devil Made Me Do It, and Last Rites. So exactly 10 films based off of multiple cases from the Warrens. That's impressive in my opinion.
Mm.
Doing that many films in 10 years, it's crazy. That's basically a new Conjuring film every single year.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
12
mad when you
years.
think about it. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I'd say probably The Nun is the one that is least true story, but it's not really based on a true story. It's based on obviously their experiences and a an entity that is based upon another entity. But we would never have had those movies if it hadn't have been for the Conjuring movies and the experiences of Ed and Lorraine. So it's very the whole universe, the whole Conjuring sort of universe is very unique. We just like the Warrens, we're not going to get anything like it again. The actual Conjuring movies, the sequels have always been based on another true story, whereas like you said about The Exorcist, yes, it doesn't have as many sequels, but also those sequels aren't based upon real life stories after that. The first one was, the second are sort of based upon something that is based upon a true story, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Um, so they're very unique and very specific. And I like that because it just shines a light on so much that has happened and been documented, that that it has to make you question what is out there and what is real and isn't.
Yeah, from what I know, I'm pretty sure there's only oh, don't worry guys, that was probably a malfunction. It's completely all right. Hold up. All right guys, well wait. It's all good, chat. It's all good. Don't worry. There's some internet problems, and I completely understand. There's a lot of people's internet aren't necessarily great right now. Oh, all
Sorry, my
right. All
microphone
good.
kind of just, I think it's the lead, it unplugged itself. I do apologize.
Oh, okay. That's no, that's all good. And chat, we're sorry about that. It was just a little bit of a malfunction. Nothing much. It only took up 1 minute of our time, so that's
Sorry about
completely
that.
fine. Oh, it's all good. No worries. Oh man, what was I gonna say? I think it was about The Exorcist.
Mm.
Thing about The Exorcist is that only one, I'm pretty sure, the like one of the case files there, one of them is actually in Zach Bagans' museum,
Mm.
but I'm pretty sure the other six are in Rome, if I'm correct. I think they're in
Wow.
like a case and they're like security protected in Rome. It's crazy. I think it's in I totally forgot what it was, but I think they're protected in the big round arena or whatever it was in Rome. I completely forgot the name of it, but if you know
Is
what
it
I'm
the
talking about.
Colosseum?
Yeah, the Colosseum. I'm pretty sure it's there if I'm correct.
Interesting.
I'm not quite sure, but from what I heard, I think it is in the Colosseum, so that's interesting. That's the least place I was expecting case files to an old exorcism from almost a century ago. That's like a crazy place for it to be protected at, but it's
That is
whatever.
mad. I can't. I'm not too sure on it myself, so that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah,
Um,
I wonder how much those would go for online
oh
if they
gosh.
actually like started selling them. That it would go for crazy money. I know that possibly thousands of dollars, most likely, considering
I'd
there's
probably
only
say
like 7 of them.
millions.
Maybe considering it is based off of one of the no, considering it's what one of the scariest horror movies is based on,
Mm.
that I think it would go for that much money actually. Like Zach Bagans' museum probably has at least $1 billion worth of stuff. And it's because he even has artifacts from Bundy himself. I think he
Wow.
had Bundy's glasses, if I'm correct. I'm not going to get too into it because that type of stuff isn't really appropriate to talk about on YouTube.
Hmm.
But Bundy's stuff was there. I'm pretty sure Dahmer as well.
Wow.
I'm not quite sure, but Peggy the Doll to book box. I know Peggy the Doll is one of the things in the world you do not want to look at in the eyes. If you do, some like terrible stuff will happen to you. Like
Yeah.
absolutely terrible. Even if you're looking at it through a screen, you're still looking at her eyes.
That's crazy, isn't it? That's creepy.
Yeah, and I know a few YouTubers have done it before. Hopefully they did it respectfully. Another one that I really love to watch, he actually does do some pretty good haunted videos. Yeah, he does go to motels, but he's gone onto like ships before. He's helped
Mm.
investigate people's houses. He went to Zach Bagans' museum. I'm pretty sure he touched Peggy the doll or looked
Oh.
into. I think he did both. I'm not quite sure, but I do know that he looked into her eyes. I think he's okay. I don't think anything's happened to him right now because he's still making content, but it's still scary. I could never be caught dead looking into the eyes of that doll.
Yeah, it is one of those things I'm like, half of me really believes that it's something genuinely would be bad. That would happen if I did that. And then another half of me wants to test it, which is just
I'd,
bad.
honestly, I'd risk my life doing it. It's scary. That's the thing. Might as well go out on a good note.
It's true.
Or
It's true.
David, remembered for looking into the eyes of Peggy the doll. Something like that. It would be funny just looking into her eyes, although you still have to be very respectful with it, or
Yes.
else it
Yeah.
will all go downhill. Um, like obviously with Post Malone, his plane almost crashed because of malfunctions because of the debug box. I
Hmm.
know there was I think the actual signature of the creator of Satan's Church is in there as well.
Interesting.
I forgot what else was in there. I think the Devil's Rocking Chair was one of them.
Mm.
Uh, I know there was a whole room dedicated to the exorcism of Emily Rose with like a whole bunch of actual artifacts from it. A real devil pentagram is in there, I believe. Um, yeah, in the basement. It's a crazy long thing. I think it's like a 45-minute tour for 50 per person. Although it's definitely a life-risking one because Zach did mention that if you did go there, something will definitely happen to you. If it's
Mm.
either just seeing something paranormal or possibly getting possessed. He did mention that you can get possessed there. I don't think it's actually happened there before, but judging by the amount of stuff he has in there,
Mm.
100% you could get possessed. He has hundreds of artifacts, thousands of artifacts. based off of, or no, from real serial killers like Bundy or Dahmer. But Charles Manson glasses is in there as well. His real glasses
Wow.
that he wore. He's an insane collector. I don't like Zach Bagan himself.
Mm-mm.
I don't respect him that much.
No.
Like, his museum is really cool and all, but I'm not a big fan of the actual man himself. Just like
Me
I'm not
neither.
a fan of the Warrens. Um, Other people like Sam and Colby, I do like them. They are pretty cool people, but they just have to be a little bit more respectful with what they're doing and not record everything on camera.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, I agree with
personally,
that.
I would go to Zach Bagan's museum and record everything just for fun, but that's I would just want to do it, showcase everything, see what everything's like. I know some of that stuff you seriously can't show on camera,
Mm,
especially Peggy the doll, because even if you look through her eyes on camera, you possible bad stuff will still happen to you.
that's mad, isn't
So
it?
yeah, I think there's a few dolls around the world that are like that. I don't think he has anything from the Warrens, like nothing from the Warrens. I think
Mm,
everything is in the Warrens Museum, if I'm correct, which is just their house, I think. But
that's
yeah,
crazy.
and
It is crazy what there is.
I still don't understand why he would take Annabelle out of the box when they specifically said you can't, or else even if you're wearing like gloves or stuff, you're done for. Like, if
Yeah.
you interact with that doll at all, you're done for. You can't do anything. You can't do anything. You can't escape the doll. You can't escape possession, really, unless if you call a pro exorcism guy. Unless if you actually, like, contact someone like that, then you have a decent chance at escaping.
Mm.
But if you interact with the doll at all, you're screwed. There's nothing you're going to be able to do. It's terrifying.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
it does
makes
make
me
you think.
wonder, like, what happens if I do it myself? No,
Mm,
honestly, because it's Annabelle, I would just look at her and that's it. Nothing, I don't think anything would happen if you just look at her.
no.
But if you touch her, yeah, I'm not doing that. I would touch Peggy because that one is less harmful, but still pretty bad. But Annabelle, I'm never laying a single nail on that doll. That would kill me if I actually did. I'm not
Mm.
dying. I'm not dying like that, at least. Like,
No, definitely
I
not.
yeah,
No.
I don't like Annabelle at all. The movies are okay, but the actual doll itself,
Mm.
no.
I think the movie doll is definitely scarier to look at than the real doll,
Yeah,
but the
the
real
real
doll
doll
obviously
is
has that story.
yeah, the real doll, it's so delightful. It's
Mm.
so charming. It's so friendly. But the actual story behind that
Mm.
doll is more demonic, more
Mm.
disturbing than some actual movies out there, like Human
Yeah.
Centipede. It's
Oh,
worse than
100%.
that.
Yeah, it's scary, and I think what makes the real doll scarier is the fact that it is a Raggedy Ann doll, which a lot of people had back then. So it just makes it look like it's something that one of your kids could have in their bedroom, which is really creepy.
And that doll specifically is probably the most possessed item in the entire world because of the story behind it. Because there was like three different cases around Annabelle.
Mm,
Obviously, going based off of the films, there were three different films just around a single doll. And
mm,
keep in mind, that's the only film with a doll based on an actual case. Like, if you're comparing it to Chucky, Chucky's just a toy doll. It's all fiction. Megan, all fiction. Annabelle, all real. Like, that's another creepy thing about the Annabelle case, is that even though it is a friendly doll, it's a possessed doll, and that
mm,
thing caused a lot of trauma for not only the Warrens' kid, but the Warrens themselves. And that's why she's on such high
Mm.
alert with not like she's on high alert, but like the security guards are all on high alert when it
Mm.
comes to taking care of Annabelle. Except for that one guy, rest in peace, but I wouldn't have done that if I were you transferring her case, because that's why holy water was put onto that case. That's why that case is affected with God's creation,
Yeah,
because of how
exactly that.
bad that case actually was. And that's how bad the doll is, that they literally had to put her in her own case, lock her up, and make sure they open the case time to time to put holy water on her to hopefully tame the spirit. You're not going to be able to get rid of it because that's how bad the spirit is, but at least you have a chance of taming it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think, that's where was what helped the case, but also makes it a bit creepier is that there is always going to be that existence. Whereas in the Last Right story, it's about obviously a family. It's not a haunted possession like Annabelle. It's generally something that's happening in the household. And to me, that can be a bit scarier, but at the same time, that could also be something you can get away from. Whereas the Annabelle doll is something that is always going to exist because for some reason they're deciding not to destroy it, which, it's
I don't
probably
know.
something I would have
I think
tried.
it's because it's a piece of history that they're
Mm,
like, no, we can't destroy this. It's a piece of history.
mm,
Honestly, that would be a good reason why not to destroy it, but I'd still say destroy it. That's gonna hurt so many people's lives if you don't
mm.
destroy it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But people are mad. They like to have these crazy things, and they will find some sort of reason not to, part with it. So whatever that may be. Um, but I don't know. I find stuff like that very interesting. Um, and I do think that, The Last Rites definitely has a massive potential to be one of the better entries in the entire series. And I'm looking forward to seeing
Ooh.
where they go with it.
Yeah, I think we are rounding out the end. So to end everything off, I am really excited for this film. I'm
Mm,
excited to see what these directors have in store for the fans of the Conjuring franchise. I want to see them go off the rails,
mm,
not in story, not in side plots, but everything else. They got to make this thing the absolute standout of the
mm.
Conjuring films. They have to make this movie go wide. They have to make this movie get scarier. They have to make the theater, they have to make the audience feel scared again. Because when you go to the Conjuring films, you're going to get jump scared and like jump at least once. That's it. With Last Rites, they seriously need to go off the limits and jump scare as many people as possible. Really bring the fear into the audience and show how bad this case actually was for the Warrens.
Yeah, and I think what I want from the movie is to have something that actually lasts with me psychologically for a few days because I want them to get across just what an impact it had on all of the people involved. And to do that, you've got to make the audience feel the lasting impact of it. So I hope they portray that well.
Yeah. And I wonder if they're gonna bring back anything from the other films. Because if you look into the film, you can hear, like in the trailers, you can hear a slowed down version of the melody from the
Mm,
first film, and then you
mhm,
hear a sped up version of the melody. So maybe, and I'm just spitballing here, maybe there will be a connection with that hypnotizing thing or whatever
mm.
from the first film with this new film. And I'm only saying that because the audio from that one was used in both of these trailers, sped up and slowed down. In which sped up is interesting. I don't know why they're doing that, but yeah.
I think they will find a way to link everything.
Yeah, it's the last film, so they have to go out with a bang. They have to make everything.
100%.
Yeah.
I
But
agree with that.
yeah, that's everything I'd say. So everyone, if you did hop on and say hi, such as Kyle, Oracle, and then we also had Rice join on with us. Thank you all for joining on. And thank you, Horror, for joining on. It was a pleasure having you on again for the second time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I always enjoy our conversations, so
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
always fun. It's always fun seeing you chat with other people. It's always fun having chats with other people. It's always fun
Mm.
doing these podcasts, and I'm glad we're already over halfway to our 10th episode, which is kind of crazy now that I think about it. But if you guys did hop on, thank you for joining us. And you can see me tomorrow on Kyle's channel, AK Flat. You will be seeing me on his channel tomorrow around 1 p.m. ish again, for one of his live streams, and then I will be joining Horror on her channel on the 30th for a Wes Craven tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's like a tribute live
Yeah,
stream. So
definitely.
you will
Definitely.
see me hanging out on those over there. I'll definitely be promoting it on my community posts if you guys ever check those out. I always promote everything new that I'm gonna be on or everything new that I'm coming out with. Except for the I Know What You Did Last Summer review, which I did today. I watched it yesterday. I actually decently enjoyed it. I didn't mind it
Mm.
as much as most people did.
I've not
I
yet seen it.
I was really surprised with the twist. That's all I'm gonna say. I was genuinely surprised with the twist, and a lot of people are kind of controversial around it. I liked I really liked the plot twist because it finally did something that horror hasn't done
Mm.
ever. So that's all I'm gonna say. They finally did something that not a single slasher movie has ever done. That's
Yeah,
all I can say, but you will be shocked. But overall, it was a good film, and yeah, that was the sixth episode of the podcast. So, everyone, thank you for hopping on. You can go check out my review tomorrow, obviously, joining Kyle on his channel around 1 p.m. ish. And then on the 30th, you can see me on Horror's channel for the Wes Craven tribute. So, everyone, thank you for hopping on, and I hope you all had a lovely day. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one because I will be doing another one in 2 weeks based off of the 10th anniversary for Until Dawn. So,
amazing.
stay tuned on there. I don't know who I might bring on for that one, but just stay tuned, everyone. So, thank you for hopping on. I really appreciate it, and I had a great time. I hope you did too.
100% loved having this conversation. So thank you once again for
Yeah,
having me on.
thank you. All right, everyone. See ya.